Good morning and welcome to TVP World, coming to you live from Warsaw this Saturday morning. My name is Alex Smolinski and these are latest updates in the world news. We begin this hour with Ukraine's Western backers who have rallied behind the country after talks in Istanbul ended without agreement on that 30-day ceasefire. A Ukrainian source described demands presented by the Russian delegation as non-starters.
The talks in Turkey were the first direct contact in more than 3 years. In the end, they lasted less than 2 hours, and significantly without the 30-day pause in fighting suggested by the Ukrainian side.
The agenda that has been given to our host and our partners was to discuss first is the ceasefire, second one is the humanitarian track, is the exchanges, and third is a potential meeting on the leaders level. As a result, we've agreed to exchange 1,000 persons to 1,000, and we're working on other modalities, and our colleagues are in contact and will exchange all the documents.
US President Donald Trump has applied pressure to end the conflict, demanding that the two sides hold face-to-face talks. Kyiv's Western backers were also disappointed with the failure to agree a pause in fighting.
We agree that the Russian side would have had a good opportunity this week to hold initial talks on a peace agreement, preceded by a ceasefire agreement. We are very disappointed that this did not take place.
The Russian delegation expressed their satisfaction with the meeting, saying they were ready to continue contacts. The European Union is now preparing a new package of sanctions to further increase pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war.
The Ukraine-Russia ceasefire talks in Istanbul did not progress, but Ukraine's allies gathered yesterday for European Political Community Summit in Albania and pledged to take action against Russian President Vladimir Putin. Angela Skujins has more.
Among those 47 leaders from across the European Union, as well as the wider European continent, was Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, that Belarusian oppositional figure. Now, on the sidelines of the European Political Community Summit in the Albanian capital, she told TVP World that while she was not surprised Russian President Vladimir Putin did not show up himself to those ceasefire talks in Turkey, she says now allies need to respond in kind and in a language that he understands.
We have to talk on the language of dictators, on the language of power. That's why I encourage democratic partners to show its teeth, to use the tools that you have, to counter dictators, like sanctions policy, policy of isolation, policy of pressure. This is what works with the dictators.
But strictly condemnation was not the only item on the agenda for that EPC summit in Tirana. We also heard from leaders such as German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, as well as UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, promising to up the ante on the Kremlin, hoping to bring that leader to its knees and to the negotiating table. We also heard from European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen outlining the contours of the 18th sanctions package against Moscow.
We want peace. And so we are working on a next set of sanctions. Main elements of this package will be, for example, sanctions on Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. Further listing of vessels in the shadow fleet and lower the oil price cap, and more sanctions on Russia's financial sector. Because we want peace, and it is time to seriously engage on that.
Despite the turbulence in Turkey, as well as the no-shows, a glimmer of hope has materialised in the Albanian capital. This is the collegiality, as well as the allyship that has rallied around Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who attended these talks himself on Friday. But lest they look like no-shows themselves, they need to get serious on the threats they have levelled against Moscow, including the sanctions, as well as the tariffs. We also need those international partners, such as the US and Canada, to get on board as well. Angela Skujins from the Albanian capital for TVP World.
The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said that despite unacceptable demands from the Russian side, the Ukraine delegation remained very calm during the negotiations. He also emphasized that Ukraine and the US are well coordinated in their efforts to achieve peace in Ukraine.
I will leave it to history because still these are negotiations. It's not for me here to officially talk about the content to this extent that you want. I can again reiterate the general mood and the outcome and the outline of this conversation that yes, there were a number of things that of course were unacceptable, but again, the Ukrainian delegation took it with a very calm posture, understanding that this is something that Russians usually voice, and we were keeping to our line. This is very important. There were Ukrainian-American contacts here, at least 3 of them. Meeting between Minister Sibiha, Secretary Rubio, and Special Representative Kellogg in Antalya. Then the meeting of advisors in the morning today, where there was Andriy Yermak, Sibiha, Umerov, and also Kellogg, General Kellogg, but also the trilateral with the Turkish side. So, I mean that all of this is well coordinated with the American side. We are in a good contact with them. We exchange views, we exchange positions, and we coordinate with the American side. And as far as I understand, the American side was already briefed by the Ukrainian side on the outcomes of the talks.
We have to meet, said U.S. President Donald Trump, referring to Russian President Vladimir Putin, following those unsuccessful peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia and Turkey. The American president also said that he believes a meeting between himself and Putin would solve the ceasefire issue, but added that if not, it would be very interesting.
The job they've done is, in a fairly short period of time, is just outstanding, and they're great people. We have to meet. He and I will meet. I think we'll solve it, or maybe not, but at least we'll know. And if we don't solve it, it'll be very interesting.
Ahead of Pope Leo XIV's inaugural Mass, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio departed Turkey for Italy and the Vatican. Rubio is a member of the U.S. delegation that will attend the Sunday Mass led by Pope Leo XIV, the first U.S. citizen to hold the position. The Mass will constitute his formal installation as Pope and will be held in St. Peter's Square. Aside from Rubio, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance will also attend the inauguration. And ahead of Romania's crucial runoff election on Sunday, 2 candidates, right-wing George Simion and centrist Nicu Sordan, are going neck and neck.
It's the home stretch of the presidential race in Romania. After scoring barely half as much as his opponent in the first round, the independent Bucharest mayor Nicu Sordan has unexpectedly closed the gap with populist right-wing George Simion. Now the Trump-minded candidate's advantage is only wafer thin. Simion's absence from debates with Dan didn't help him, experts say.
And he promised to participate in a political debate with Mr. Nicu Sordan. On TV, he promised, he never showed up, and then we found out he was in Poland.
The differences between the candidates are pronounced. Dan aims to rely on an array of partners.
Romania has 3 pillars of security. One is NATO membership, the second is the strategic partnership with the United States, and the third is EU membership. These are the 3 directions that Romania must continue in.
Simion, on the other hand, prioritizes a rapport with the US. Though he deems Russia a threat and claims to be pro-NATO and pro-EU, he has proved to be an anti-Ukrainian EU skeptic who wants Moldova to become part of Romania. But in his opinion, his country's ties with the US are the top priority.
We share common values with the Trump administration and the MAGA, Make America Great Again movement in the United States.
But in the end, it all boils down to the individual choices of the Romanian people.
What did George Simion promise me? He promised peace, he promised neutrality, considering what is happening around us. We have a war at our borders, and he promised neutrality in that we will no longer supply Ukraine with money.
We believe more in the Nicu Sor option because it is softer, it seems cleaner. He has some results through the things he has done, and I think the direction in which Romania should go is pro-European, a democratic path, as far away from Russia and as close to the West as possible.
The pivotal election in Romania will be held this Sunday, May the 18th.
Hungary's opposition leader Peter Magyar has posted a video on social media of his 300-kilometer walk across the country, which he hopes will help reunite the country. The film shows several dozen supporters walking with Magyar, carrying Hungarian flags. As they enter a community, they are welcomed and he speaks with local residents. Magyar said the walk was a symbolic effort to bridge divides amid rising tensions with Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. Relations between Budapest and Brussels are strained, and the Hungarian opposition candidate has vowed to unblock EU funds if elected next year. Magyar's walk, which began with thousands of supporters in Budapest earlier this week, will conclude in the Romanian city of Oradea, which has significant historical and cultural ties to Hungary. NATO's Lightning Griffin 25 exercise is underway in Lithuania. As part of the exercises, Allied troops, including French, British, US, Italian, and German soldiers, participated in a number of airborne and in-field maneuvers. More on that from our reporter Zuzanna Jurek, who is on the ground.
The Griffin Lightning 25 exercises are organized by NATO's Multinational Corps Northeast. These exercises aim to test out the operational speed, readiness, as well as operability of NATO's allied forces in a simulated Article 5 environment. These exercises are multi-domain exercises which aim to test out the strength of capabilities in different scopes, including airborne, medical, as well as land maneuvers. It is the latter set which we are experiencing here in Lithuania. These exercises are expected to comprise of approximately 16,000 soldiers from allied forces, including Norway, Germany, the US, Britain, France, as well as Poland. These exercises simulate combat situations in order to test out the operational readiness of the allied forces, including combat scenarios. Now, the priorities of the multinational integration of the allied forces into cohesive units, fighting units specifically, is also being tested. Most importantly, however, these exercises aim to test out the operational readiness should an adversary attack occur on NATO's eastern flank. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Hadi Matar, the 27-year-old who tried to kill writer Salman Rushdie in New York in 2022, was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The attack left Rushdie blind in one eye. After receiving his sentence for attempted murder, the attacker is now facing a federal trial on terrorism-related charges. The prosecution believes the perpetrator was motivated by a decades-long fatwa, an Islamic ruling or opinion calling for the author's death. Salman Rushdie's novel, The Satanic Verses, is cited as the reason for issuing of the fatwa, with some Muslims considering the book blasphemous. And next year, IKEA will celebrate 65 years in partnership with the Polish wood industry. Today, Poland is IKEA's top furniture supplier and has the second largest production hub after China. In an interview with TVP World, Marina Dubakina, CEO of IKEA Retail Poland, expressed confidence that this legacy will help the country remain competitive in the sector.
There is extremely strong base of both like education and the ability availability of the skills like engineering, manufacturing, which is not necessarily the case in all other countries. And in that sense, for me, also quite obvious that the Polish attitude of really delivering a very strong performance culture and interest in taking on the new developments like automation, technology improvement is everything that contributes to the competitiveness of the industry. But of course, there is more needs to be done.
And with that, it's a wrap for this edition of The World News. But don't go away, as we're back very soon with more news and features.